You're listening to Geeks Unleashed,
a podcast that covers what's current in the world of pop culture.
I'm Mark Brassington, and I'm in London.
And I'm Jasmine in Texas.
Hello, welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 67.
If you are not already subscribed, you can find us at Geeks Unleashed everywhere, including your favorite podcast platform. Remember, 5-star reviews help us get found by more listeners, so please rate and review Geeks Unleashed on Apple or Podchaser.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jasmine.
This week's review, we are reviewing the Marvel Cinematic movie, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
And spoiler warning, this is a review show, so if you have not had a chance to watch Shang-Chi, then you might want to pause this and come back later because we are about to ruin everything.
This week, we are also joined by our guest, Jelani, from the Pop Culture Philosophers. Welcome, Jelani.
Hello, guys. Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm a little under the weather, so if I sound like crud, it's that.
Tis the season.
Yes. So, yeah, thank you so much for me being here. I've seen the movie, or watched the movie twice. So,
wow.
Yeah, I really want to see it again too. But I saw it once, and as soon as I walked out, I was like, "Oh yeah, sometime next week, I gotta get in there and get another one in."
Yeah, again. Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to get my perspectives in. I've got to, since I'm critiquing the film, I should, try to go see the film twice and just pay for it.
Do you know what, though? A lot of the time when we're reviewing stuff, I try and watch stuff. I try and watch stuff twice as well, like if we can. But I've only unfortunately seen it the once before this week's review. Before we jump into actually the review, we thought it'd be good just to have a little chit chat. And I always ask everybody this question because I'm just always curious. Sort of, what is your secret origin, Jelani? How did you get into pop culture, comic books? How did they find you or you find them?
Well, it's a funny story. I was bullied in middle school a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was the short kid. I wore the glasses. I was kind of geeky anyway, but I really wasn't into it as much. So I was an introvert for a little bit, but I have extroverted parents, so it worked out in that way. So this long story short, I went into drawing and decided I wanted to be an artist when I grew up. That was one of the things I wanted to really try. So I loved art. I loved cartoons. I drew. I got in trouble a lot drawing in class. So my parents were like, "Well, we're going to try to use this skill for you." So they got me art paper and all this stuff, and I started to draw, and I really got into it. And and since I was bullied so much, I would go to the school counselor a lot. And my school counselor, her name was Nydia, beautiful woman, great woman. I have no clue where she is now. I really wish I kept up with her, but she owned a comic book store called the Comic Shop.
Oh wow!
And my first foray into anything pop culture related or comic related in general was she gave me an X-Men calendar and from her store. And I never, I've seen the X-Men, once or twice. I wasn't really big into it. I was just, just a kid. And when I realized I like these characters, I like the way they look, and I want to know more about them. So then I started going to her store on the comic shop, and it's like really close from the school. So it was like, it wasn't like a really good jaunt, but it was a good drive. But when I got there, I started to read classic X-Men, and I love the X-Men. It's like one of my favorite books to this day. And I got into it from there. I started reading books. Ever since then, I've drawn for a long time. Don't have a lot of great drawings, mind you, but I still play around with it every once in a while. And that's kind of how I started. And then I met up with Robbie towards my actually, when I got out of high school. We were actually in the same high school together.
Okay.
But we never knew each other until outside of it. And we started working in the movie theater together, a movie theater called Hollywood 18. And Hollywood 18 is awesome. It was just a great we goofed off more than we did work, and it was the first real job we ever had. And that theater was torn down just last year.
Oh,
so yeah, I'm really sad about it. But that's where I watched most of the movies that I just ingrained in my head. So I don't have encyclopedic knowledge, but it's pretty close of things that I enjoy. And then I worked with Robbie again at Hollywood Video.
Oh my gosh!
Was that by accident, or was that kind of like...
No. I got him the job.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Robbie and I have been together for a long time. Like, as far as our friendship goes, it's been well over 20 years. So, like, when he invited me to become part of the Pop Culture Philosophers and the Excitable PCP crew, I was like, okay, I guess that's a good thing to do. And we started doing videos and stuff like that. And we were doing them in his apartment. And after a while, the pandemic, of course, happened. And, the craziness started. And he was like, well, let's do, meetings. Let's just get online and stream. And I was like, okay, sure. So that's fine. And as I'm sitting here now, like, I was setting up I had to get a camera and I had to get all this other stuff together. And I was like, oh no, I'm not really prepared for this. And like, I don't have the hair for this. There's a lot of different things I was going through on my really dumb, silly things. But we eventually like made our first review, Spawn. And our first, and it's still our like highest rated video on YouTube as a movie review. And we've been doing movie reviews for Fridays ever since. I love to talk about things. I love to talk about film. I like to talk about music. I love comics. Not as much anymore because I changed from reading comics to getting action figures, as some of you guys probably well know now.
Yeah.
I have a treasure trove of things. I think I'm turning into a toy hoarder. It's a strange little setup. So yeah, that's a long and short of me. I work from home, so I got lucky. I was lucky with that. I drive for Uber and Lyft for fun, just to see different people's reactions to different things. I pick up everyone. So
yeah.
I don't have that many passions, but I do. I really love pop culture. I really love the space that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that we have this medium to like talk about it. So, that's me in a nutshell. That's all I got.
That's brilliant.
Like the ramble.
That's actually quite an interesting take, because I always love to know how people got started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was the same. I was 14. I was in strangely enough, I was in an art class, and the guy sitting next to me, I didn't even know comics were a thing. Like, I knew that I'd seen Spider-Man cartoons and X-Men cartoons, but it was similar to you. The guy sitting next to me in my art class just turned around to me and said, I'm going to the comic shop at the weekend. Do you want to come? I went, there's a such thing as a comic shop. It's like, what? Like, so yeah. I just went along. Obviously, there's obviously more. Like, I won't go into it. Obviously, it's not my story now. It's chatting to you, but yeah, it's sort of similar. So I always get interested in how did people find pop culture. Some people, it's like their parents, and I find that as well. Like with sport, people that are really into sport, their parents tend to be really into sport, or how did that come about? So I mean, is there anything that because you said about not really as into comics right now, more action figures. What are you enjoying right now, whether it's movies, TVs, or comics? Or
well, not much. I mean, since the pandemic, it's cut off most of my enjoyability for film. I loved movies, so like every Thursday night when a movie would come out, like before the midnight show, I would hit the midnight show. And the pandemic happened, and it was just like, I don't have a medium. I don't know what to do with my life. And I used to like, I read a lot for a long time, and I was deep into Harry Potter, that book series. I read off and on, and also I love Lord of the Rings. Just good fantasy books, things, horror, Stephen King novels always get me.
Oh, wow.
So it's a mixed bag for me. I try a few things, but toys, I have to go back to my toys. My toys are my real passion because I didn't get that many as a kid, and I wanted everything. So
are you going back and like trying to hunt stuff back from when you were younger, or are you buying current stuff, or is it a mixture of the two?
I'm into like the Masters of the Universe line, the Origins line. I've gotten back into G.I. Joe, these 6-inch figures of the devil, Target exclusives. The way they distribute toys now is crazy, because like I'll have to wake up at like 7 a.m. to get to Target at 8 to try to get a figure that if I don't get it now, I'll never see it again, or if I do, it's $400. So I don't like to play those games. So it's like I said, it's a mixed bag for me. Like I'm into certain things. I love the What If show right now on Disney Plus. Of course, I love The Mandalorian. I like, just random TV shows. I've gone away from just too much social commentary in my life, because when I do it, I lose people. And I lose people I should have lost to begin with. But
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, a lot has changed in like the last year, where my ideas don't mesh well with people I've been friends with for decades. And it's kind of it's just a change. Just I don't know how to explain it.
It's a natural cleaning house kind of.
Yeah. When you say your ideas, you mean just that when you watch a film, like your view on the film, like, and they don't see the same view, like
they don't see the same view, like so certain social commentary that's in film now can be a little ham-fisted. I'm a Blazing Saddles kind of guy. So
a black sheriff?
Yeah. Stuff like that. I love that comedy. I love it. I absolutely adore it. But you couldn't play that now, because it's just the connotations of it are just so, people interpret things different ways now.
Yeah.
And the way I see movies, the way I love movies, I just like to enjoy the cinema. I like to go in, be immersed in their world for a short period of time. There are a lot of movies that do this for me. And, nowadays, if I could watch that movie now with other people, they'll have a different take on it than I would. And it's all subjective. But I just, it's harder now for me to like give my opinion on something and and not be criticized over it in certain ways. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't know how to explain it, because like I said, I like to enjoy the experience. I want a message in it, but I don't want you to beat me in the head with that message. There are a lot of films that do that now, more so, or they virtue signal in some way. And instead of a good example for me, which I don't know if we want to break it in this topic, but you guys watch Star Wars. You're aware.
We're aware of Star Wars.
Right. So there was the sequel trilogy that I am not a fan of in any way, shape, or form. At first I was. And the opinions in their second outing, The Last Jedi, is highly contentious. And I am on the maddening side of it, to where someone that doesn't know the material or doesn't like the people that they portray, go in and just ruin characters and ruin storylines for me. And I'm on that side. But the problem is, I'm on that side with other people that are like using it as like troll bait. And it's like I'm with them, but at the same time, I'm like, I hate your ideas. I don't like how you portray this. I know you don't like it, but see, in the PCP Army, we promote positive culture. We want to be positive. We want to be the thing. But I am the black sheep. I am the one that's in the corner that's like, I'm not playing your straw man. I don't do straw man arguments. I'm just that guy. I'm gonna be like, if I don't believe something, I'm gonna tell it up front. I always have been, always will be. I've never been influenced by anything that has been done. I just like to speak my mind, and it makes me feel better. I have. We'll talk about this movie pretty soon. I'm sure you have.
Yeah, we're going to jump into that in a second.
Well, we're going to talk to the movie, but yeah, go ahead.
I actually wanted to know, because obviously you've been heavily involved in YouTube and podcasting before pandemic. So I know you guys have put your podcast on pause because you used to do it face to face, but you've moved YouTube to streaming. You've been using like StreamYard and stuff like that to be able to have your regular Friday nights. But you've obviously been involved in YouTube and podcasting roughly for like over 5 years. And I know Robbie said to you to come on, but you've been also heavily involved. I just wanted to know sort of what you've learned from being involved in it. I know, you've obviously heavily involved with Robbie and Brooks as well. Just love to know like what you've taken away from it and maybe how it's changed you at all in the last few years.
Well, it showed me, and this is going to sound cliche, but it showed me the power of friendship. Something about it, because I found out who my real friends were in 2020. 2020 showed me a lot. I had a friend that I've known for years. And we met on our friendship was started this Labor Day weekend. Like it was like 8 years ago, something like that. We were good buddies. And over this portion of this year, we're no longer friends. And it broke up like really quickly. And there was like a study, and I don't remember what the study is, so don't quote me or anything. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me. But there was like this study where friendships, especially like male friendships, have broken down over this period of time. Like people that were friends for years have just broken up, and especially male friendships. And when that happened, I started to take stock in what I was doing. And Robbie has been a good friend to me for over 20 years, like I said before, and so is Brooks. And in fact, most of the Pop Culture Philosophers I've known for years, and they stuck by me. And the fact that through this pandemic, Robbie was even having the wherewithal, he was like, well, we're stuck in here together. Let's talk and have fun. And our mental health, it wasn't the best at the time. And it brought us out of it. And what I learned is that you need friends, you need people, you need a support system. Because I've lost a lot of friends, like by useless nonsense, just senseless ending of life, hopelessness, the things that I really don't, I don't like to talk about, because I've had those thoughts as well, but and not to be dark about it, but I've lost a lot of people due to like suicides and things like that over this short period of time. And it bothers me. Yeah, it's been rough, but it happens. People grow in despair. And if we don't keep these lines of communication open, it becomes a much harder prospect in the future. So I love the power of friendship. I love it.
Oh, really? I have to agree with you. Definitely 100%. Like, I mean, the podcast, me and Jasmine had, to be honest, talked about starting Geeks Unleashed as a podcast for probably 2 or 3 years before we did it. And then at the start of COVID last year, I said, let's just do it. Like, we're not going out. Let's just do it. Like, but obviously now we're like, and it actually gives me something to really look forward to. Like, we kind of, we'll like chat for half an hour before we record, sometimes chat for an hour after we record. But actually, I think it's quite nice. Like, and one, it gives you routine, but two, it doesn't really matter to me that Jasmine's in Texas and I'm just outside London, and like, Jasmine's my friend regardless of the location. And actually as well, we've been able to meet some really great people, like doing this podcast, and actually it's sort of, I've reflected on friendship, and and actually I thought I've got some really good friends, but none of them live bloody near me. like you know, and you know, like I actually think, you know, me and Jasmine get on really well with you and Robbie, and hopefully one day we'll all trek out to a Comic-Con together and hold hands and run into the sunset together, but like, you know, under a rainbow or something. Like
I'd like
but
that.
but actually, like, but there's some friends of mine, like, I don't like to fall out with people because I don't think you should burn bridges, but I have noticed some of my in speech marks I'm not like that. Like, but there's some like what I would say speech marks, real life friends that, like, I've noticed in the last year and a half don't return messages, don't return phone calls, you know. And my brother-in-law died at the start of January, and I could count on one hand how many people called me to see how we were, like, and like from real life friends again. Like, and I'm not gonna get upset with everybody, because I did actually have a lot of text messages and stuff, but actually it was the ones that actually picked up the phone and said, how you doing, like, you know. And so I agree with you, like, in this period of time, the last 18 months, it's definitely allowed me as well to also reflect. I just wanted to agree with what you were saying, really. So
no, I understand. It's rough out here. Like, I lost my grandfather last month on my dad's birthday, which was crazy. And it's just like we get a moment of happiness. We planned this thing for my dad and like surprise him for something, and we couldn't do it because my grandfather passed away. I was like, oh my goodness, this keeps coming. So
bad timing. And
it is what it is. I guess we all say that now.
I think though the people that have the YouTube and the podcasts and stuff like that, they probably do it because they get into it because they enjoy talking about pop culture, but then you realize actually you end up needing it as well as enjoying it. So
it's an outlet, just like everybody needs some kind of outlet to funnel emotion or anything else through. So whether that's podcasting or reading or hiking or swimming, you know, like whatever it happens to be, you have to let it out some kind of way. So people need an outlet.
You have to. And I'm single, but I like being single. The solitude is great, but it's also deafening.
And with a pandemic on top of it,
where you definitely can't go out and meet people. Which that has been a rough little journey. But I'm glad that technology exists the way it does now. I mean, it's the best and the worst it's ever been at the same time. How is it possible? So, you know, I'm glad that we can connect like this. We have to connect like this. It's imperative in some form or fashion. And, you know, I really want to talk more about, you know, just the things that make me happy.
Well, I was going to say, well, let's do that in a minute. And but it's been great the last sort of 20, 30 minutes having a chat with you, Jelani, and find out more about you. Obviously, when we do the Friday night reviews, you know, we obviously do the review and then we have a bit of pop culture banter at the end. So it's been nice to just sort of get a little bit into find out more about you and
peeling back some layers.
Underneath the skin. And I know it's Horror Fest over at PCP, so Under the Skin should be a nice little reference for you.
Yes.
So, anyway, we'll be back in a moment. We're just going to take a quick break.
Hey there, this is Adam from Go Figure, and if you're a child of the 80s or a toy collector, you'll probably dig what we're doing. Each week, we look at a toy line from the past, find some toys from that toy line that could use some help, and we'll walk you through the steps how to take them from the garbage bin to the display case once again. We have a lot of fun and rescue a lot of toys. So go over to YouTube, type in Go Figure, and come check us out.
And we're back.
All right, jumping right in. Here we go with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, written by David Callahan, Destin Daniel Cretton, and Andrew Lanham. Produced, of course, by Kevin Feige and Jonathan Schwartz. It stars Simu Liu as Xu Shang-Chi, Awkwafina as Katie, Munger Zhang as Xu Xiaolin, Fala Chen as Yingli, Florian Motino as Razor Fist, Benedict Wong as Wong, Michelle Yeoh as Yingnan, Ben Kingsley returns as Trevor, and Tony Leung as Xu Wenwu.
And this is the 25th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the first standalone movie of Shang-Chi, and it's based off the Marvel comic by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin. So I'll hand back to you, Jasmine, as you're going to summarize this movie quickly.
Yeah. So, first of all, runtime on this movie is it's lengthy. It's over 2 hours long, about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
2 hours and 12 minutes.
Yeah. So 2 hours, 12 minutes long. Basically, this movie kind of covers an expansive amount of time. We start out 1,000 years ago with Tony Leung's character, Wenwu. He has come upon this majestic piece of equipment. It's 10 pieces of equipment. So he finds these 10 rings, realizes that the 10 rings grant immortality. So basically he's like, well, screw it. I'm just going to conquer all I can conquer. And that's exactly what he does for 1,000 years. Finally decides to check out this one mystical place, Talo. And he gets to the entrance of Talo and he gets his ass beat by a woman that would eventually become his wife. But that is kind of what slows him down as he finally finds an opponent that he can't just run over with his mythical 10 rings. So they get married, they have kids, she leaves her mythical home. They try to have a life. He puts his villainy behind him. Okay, but that never works, right? So anyway, his wife is murdered. He goes back to his criminal ways, builds this empire, brainwashes his kids, mainly his son, into becoming this crazy assassin. Sends his son on a mission. His son never comes back because he eventually runs away, changes his name, not very creatively, becomes just like this random kid growing up in San Francisco. He has been removed from his family for 10 years. And then the shit hits the fan. So some assassins come after him. There's this speed like bus chase. We got buses being cut in half by a dude who has a machete for an arm. It's really kind of fantastic. Then, we get the gang back together. The family's all back together now. We're back on this mythical quest and we're going back to the one place that Wenwu was never able to conquer. Turns out there's this whole other thing. There's this big, massive evil lurking behind this door that needs to be unlocked. We get big battles. There's dragons and demons and soul eaters. And it's basically this mythical mashup, fun film. Of course, I'm saying that I'm very biased, but basically that's kind of the plot in a nutshell. We get a kid who grows up with hatred in his heart, kind of has to turn that around, turn it into something else. And then we sort of get maybe possibly a happily ever after. Well, we'll see.
We will see, yeah. Before we start off, we'll jump into Jelani. Just what's your overall thoughts of Shang-Chi? Like, to summarize how you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it.
Well, it's a mixed bag for me. Like, I did enjoy it. It is a fun romp and a good origin story for this character in the MCU. In the context of the MCU, it is a great setup for a character. Simu Liu is he's kind of bland for me, but at the same time, he's very he still has that charisma, that potential to be a great actor going forward in the MCU. I don't believe this is not Shang-Chi's origin story the way it is, which, by the way, if we did do it that way, it would be incredibly insensitive because he's the son of Fu Manchu. Yeah. And Fu Manchu is like a huge racial stereotype.
So glad they got rid of that.
Yeah, that's done. But they kind of like put that on the Mandarin too, because if you go into the books, it's Fu Manchu. He's lived a long life. He's gained these powers of eternal youth. It's a lot of things that are portrayed in that, and it's still there. That's the problem. I mean, it's still there, but there are also elements with Tony Leung as Mandarin that I love. Like I love these rings. These rings are freaking awesome. I mean, they don't do that. They don't do the actual mystical rings that the Mandarin possesses. But it's fine. That's fine. I'm totally okay with how it's set up. I like how it goes into those portions. So I think it's a great movie in certain aspects, but then I get to that third act, and even though it's cool, it's just not the character of Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is a master of kung fu, meaning of little I know of him, because I never read these books, so I'm not an expert. I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. So, but it's that he was a martial artist, and he trained Spider-Man, and gave Spider-Man like a martial art style that's that suits his power set. So he's an awesome character, but he's very light in the history of the Marvel universe. So to make him like mystical at this point, I mean, it's like I said, it's a mixed bag. It's really good in certain ways where he has a cool power that he can use as an Avenger, hopefully to fight, Galactus or something stupid in the future. I want, shut up and take my money. Do it now. He's got rings now. So it works for me in certain levels, but then that's not the character. You call him something else other than Shang-Chi if you're going to do this in certain aspects of it, I think. So he's a good character, and at the same time, it's not what the original intention of that character was, and I don't know how to put that together. But like I said, I liked it. I really enjoyed the film. I can't wait to see more. We need to have some type of representation, in our lexicon of superheroes. Because if you remember, and not to sound weird or anything about it, but all the Avengers were white. So it's good to see a mixed bag going forward. Once you get Endgame out of the way, phase 4, what is this? This is phase 4, isn't it?
Yeah.
So our MCU lexicon will grow. Because the big 3 are pretty much out of commission in some form or fashion. Thor's out there, but we're having Thor: Love and Thunder. So we may get,
but even he's being replaced with Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman.
Or Jane, rather. Yeah.
Jane.
Well, I don't know if he's going to be replaced by Jane. Like, I mean, they're going to. Well, I don't.
No, I don't. Not necessarily like taking over, but even then, we're still getting a little less of Thor of Hemsworth as Thor, because Jane is going to be stepping into the mantle. Yeah.
Right. So you'll get Sam Wilson, Captain America. You have, which,
to be quite honest, like it always went that way in the comics, but like to actually do that in real life, we got a black Captain America. Fuck yeah, like that's what I'm talking about.
Yep. Once again, shut up, take my money.
Yeah.
I want that. I want it. I want to see all of them on screen. I want them to do the Avengers pose when they're spinning around the camera and it's like all the new people.
Yeah.
I want that so bad.
The new guard. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think Shang-Chi was in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run. So I can't really remember it too much. I did read it, but it would be pretty. I hadn't really thought about that. If Jane was to be Thor on the Avengers team, that might be pretty cool to have, like you just said, camera spinning around showing Sam Wilson as Captain America, having Jane Foster as Thor. We'll probably have Ironheart there, or potentially War Machine, or maybe both. I don't know. But then having Shang-Chi there, I think it'll be a while before we see another Avengers film. And when we do, and it will include like probably Captain Marvel. Although I don't think you can have Captain Marvel be in it too much, because that is like your big gun. Like, you'd have to have a really big villain to have Captain Marvel just be in the day-to-day stuff. Galactus. So maybe Galactus. So, Kang is coming. So anyway, Jasmine, what's your take on this movie? What's your summary of your overall thoughts on this movie?
My very first thought when I walked out was, thank God they did this better than Mulan. Now I know Mulan is not Marvel, but it's still Disney, still same parent company. But yeah, this movie, to me, at the beginning, I think it took a little a little time to like ramp up into it, because the scene where Wenwu is fighting with Young Lee, it felt very like knockoff version of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But after like all the other scenes after that were much more fluid, much better, had a modern style, which I think fit the theme of the film a lot better. So once we got into the meat of the film, the fight choreography was fantastic. And once we met Shang-Chi's sister, Xiling, that whole sequence with the scaffolding on the outside of the building, that was so cool. Like I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the infusion of humor. I mean, to me, like if you're going to put Awkwafina in a movie, use her in the best way that you can. And I think they did that to great effect. Like she felt like more than just the comic relief, especially when we got toward the end. There was one scene with the woman, and I don't even know that they gave her a name. They gave the main archer guy a name. He was Guangbo. But the woman who was kind of like pushing Awkwafina into Guangbo's ranks, she said, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. And I thought that one line kind of summed up the entirety of the film, because, you know, you had Shang-Chi who was running from his past, didn't really know what he wanted to do. He was a trained assassin that is now a valet at an expensive hotel. Like, come on, like talk about a fall from grace. So that kind of theme of like, pick something. And it's like Awkwafina kept making reference to it throughout the film, where she was like, you know, it's so great that you guys like have found your passion and like you just go for it with everything that you have in you. And I think that is an extremely relatable theme. So you don't have to be Asian American or anything like that to relate to this film, because that's just such a universal concept. It's like, you know, don't just be floating on the wind. Like find something within yourself that is the thing that you want to pursue, and then do it. So I really appreciated the message, and I liked that Awkwafina was the vessel to kind of push that message forward throughout the film, versus her just being this completely jokey side character that literally only says things to make the audience laugh. So I appreciated that they didn't just kind of write her off that way. I actually kind of love the way that they portrayed women in this film. Michelle Yeoh is a freaking global treasure. I love her to death. Yes. Like if I ever had the chance to meet Michelle Yeoh, I'd probably pass out and die. But like her coming in as sort of like this wise old sage auntie, like just to be like, you know, we loved your mom, we loved you guys, like you're always welcome here, and whatever your dad is telling you is bullshit, because this is really what is going on in our village. I love that she just kind of came in toward the back half of the film and was just this overarching voice of reason. But she also like pushed when she needed to, when she was kind of training with Shang-Chi to show him like, look, man, you have both of them are in you. Both your parents are within you, but you have to let it sort of like flow. You can't keep fighting from the place where you're fighting from. So that entire sequence where they're shadowing each other while she's kind of showing him the moves and he's mimicking her, that I thought that was a beautiful sequence. Like the way that they did that, the way that they moved together, that was really, really cool. The choreography there was great. Overall, again, I really enjoyed the film. I liked the message. I liked the women in the film. I liked that we had a lot of strong women characters that were like, and there was one line where the sister is like, well, no, when Awkwafina and the sister are like in her room at the compound, and she's like, so you ran away from home at 16 and then built like this underground boxing empire. And the sister was like, well, if my dad's not going to let me into his empire, I'm going to build my own. And I was like, hell yeah. Like, yes, I'm not just going to wait around for somebody to give me something. So I loved it.
Yeah, no, I really loved it. Did you? Yeah, did you love it? I really loved it too. Probably my overall criticism of it was, and I normally never say this, was it was probably just slightly too long. I wouldn't say
20 minutes.
Yeah, I would say probably if it had been an hour and 50 minutes, 55 minutes, maybe an hour and 50 minutes, I think there was probably parts of it could have been shaved down. But anyway, in terms of a first introduction to Shang-Chi, I thought it was a good, solid movie. I actually really did enjoy. Actually, because I've never read a single. Well, no, we have. We've read.
Yeah, we did cover it.
We did.
When they just relaunched Shang-Chi a couple of months ago.
Yeah, we did read the first issue of the new miniseries where it's Shang-Chi versus the world or something or other, and it is him and Spider-Man partnered up in that first issue. And I actually did quite enjoy reading that particular comic. Anyway, so as a character in this movie, I thought it was great. I actually didn't mind too much the sort of bellhop role thing that he had at the hotel and parking the cars. I kind of thought that was quite fun, but I liked the origin at the beginning. It kind of had that whole. I know like what I'm about to say, but it kind of made me think of like Lord of the Rings style like origin. You know, showing the journey of the. Well, I mean, these are 10 rings rather than one, but then Lord of the Rings did reference, 5 rings to the elves and blah, blah, whatever. But when they were doing that whole thing at the beginning, like very much telling you what's, to build it up to this big villain, I actually didn't find his dad that scary as a villain, in all honesty. I didn't think I guess that's why he wasn't eventually endgame villain for this movie. He didn't. Although he was a bit of a dick to them, and we got to flash back, and actually throughout this movie, that was something they used quite a lot, was jumping around, flashing back, and which probably was better, because otherwise we probably would have ended up with probably 40 minutes of old stuff before we got to current stuff. It was kind of the style of the movie, the jumping around, reminded me a lot of Batman Begins, because obviously with Christian Bale's Batman, we got to see Batman in different orders, from Bruce Wayne suddenly leaves the city, and then next he's in a prison, and then it jumps back and forth and before we eventually, I think with the Batman movie, it takes like 45 minutes before we even see him in costume, and and then at some point the flashbacks stop. So but this movie does use flashbacks, but I didn't find they hindered the movie, but I did feel that we could have done with maybe slightly less of them, there's something that could have been taken out of this movie just to shorten it down. In terms of
in the third act, when they get to the Mystic Island, I don't know.
Yeah.
I something about that third act doesn't sit well with me.
I know that third act.
I don't know what it is, but it's very strange and off-putting for certain things. Where it didn't feel like it was leading up to what it led up to.
No, I didn't. I agree. I didn't realize it was going to go there.
Yeah.
And that third act, I probably would say, was probably my worst part about the movie. I enjoyed a lot more up to the third act. Now, I mean, the third act itself and the fighting of the dragons I'll come to later, but I definitely think that was probably my hardest part of the movie to watch. I didn't think we'd get such a big villain, that dragon creature, in a movie like this. I thought the dad might be the final act villain.
He should have been the final. That's the thing. The Mandarin, or I guess we can't call him a chicken dish anymore. Wen Wu is he's a fantastic character. And it goes back to Iron Man 3. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, we'll talk about Iron Man 3 and that whole thing in a minute.
Yeah, but
before we jump into that, actually, I mean, Jelani, do you have a favorite character in this movie?
It's Trevor Slattery.
Don't you say that.
It's Trevor.
You love Trevor?
I love Trevor. Do you understand me? Okay, I'll give you my rationale. Because it goes to Iron Man 3. I'm sorry. I love that Mandarin. Like the first time you get Mandarin, when he's doing the you'll all suffer.
Oh yeah.
The whole shtick at the beginning where they think he's an actual terrorist, and then you come to find out he's like the jokey joke. And I know we're talking about that. I know we are, but it's his character and the fact that they bring him back for this movie. And this is the funnier part. When I first watched the movie, I watched the movie Thursday night when it came out, and I was like, I've really got to pee. So I really had to get up. So, like, in between the scene where they were when they were brought to the compound
Mm-hmm.
and captured. I saw that part and I was like, all right, this is a good time. This is a good lull. I'm gonna go pee. So I go pee and I come back. Trevor's on the screen. I'm like, what? What did I miss? So bad. Like I missed like that section of where he was in the movie. But then I watched it again like last night with Robbie and Brooks. And when we saw it, I was like, oh, this makes more sense now. Because like it explains everything about why he was there and everything. He's just first of all, it's out of left field. I never expected him in this movie.
Yeah.
They didn't.
He's not in any of the trailers. He's not in any of the trailers.
Yeah, thank goodness. Thank you for not putting that in the trailer. It was just worth it for me. I don't know what it was. Now don't get me wrong. I love all the characters. I mean, Tony Leung is probably, I think he's an underused villain because they don't have villains in the Marvel universe. And to build movies, and they do build movies for the Chinese market, which the Chinese market didn't accept because of the Fu Manchu references. But I love Tony Leung's character as Wenwu and how he commanded himself in certain aspects of the film. This is the chicken dish we should have got in that other movie we're going to talk about later. But he should have been an antagonist. We'll talk about it. But I loved him in that. And this, if he's a good runner-up, he's a good runner-up for me. I like how they started the movie with him. They should have ended the movie with a sentiment of him at the end in some form. But I think we should have had this guy be Tony Stark's antagonist throughout in this from the beginning. He should have been there from the beginning. If you're going to put a character this significant, and I don't mind him, I don't mind him being the father of Shang-Chi. That's actually perfect. That's brilliant. So it works out in some form or fashion. But I really like. I love the original Mandarin. Sorry, I absolutely adore him.
Ben Kingsley is great. He's great. Yeah.
Ben Kingsley though, like he was hilarious throughout this. I love that bit at the very end where he's laying on the floor and you think he's dead.
Yeah,
I was like, actually killed him off, and then suddenly, he lifts his head going, "Shh, I'm playing a part," and then the chicken pig thing rolls over and like joins in with him. Honestly, I hope they release some sort of plushies or cuddly toy things of those chicken pigs. I might have to. I don't want to pop, but like
Morris. I got a Morris.
You got one. You've actually got one.
But yeah.
I didn't know there was. I did not know there was toys of the chicken pig already. So.
You could sell it. I'd probably do that. Morris was awesome. I mean, yeah, his camaraderie with Morris was awesome.
Yeah, I do think that relationship between Trevor and the chicken pig was hilarious. So, sorry, it is a chicken pig. Anyway, Jasmine? What's your favorite character in this movie?
Wenwu, hands down. He is fantastic. I also. I mean, you know me, I say it all the time. I love the villain. Usually the villains are always my favorite. And his swagger was off the chain. I like every time he walked into a room, and there was a flashback scene where he after his wife is murdered and he puts the rings back on and he is wearing a suit, but he's got his suit sleeves rolled up so you could see those rings on his arms. And then he's just casually walking into this underground casino holding his 7-year-old son's hand and basically just kind of acknowledges is this the guy? And his son nods his head and he just lets his hand go. And then he freaking raises the place with the rings and then just walks right back over to Shang-Chi. And he's like, all right, man, we got work to do. You going to help me or not? And I was just like, God damn, anybody else feeling hot? Cause woo, that was some running into a room and just killing everybody and then walking out all casual. I was like, damn, that's what I'm talking about. So he's my favorite character. I have loved Tony Leung for a long time though. His best film, in my opinion, 2007, Lust Caution, directed by Ang Lee. It is a phenomenal piece of cinema. It is hard to find because it is NC-17, but that is an amazing film with him and the lead character in that film. So, but Tony Leung, he was my favorite. I loved him. I empathized with him, which is rare for me, but to me, he just seemed like he had sort of like good intentions, which don't really matter. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but just the fact that he loved his wife so much that is exactly what kind of corrupted him. I thought that was sort of an interesting sort of play on it. He didn't come across as a victim, but he also didn't come across as like this mad tyrant either. He had a personality. He was charming. He was likable. Yes, he did some awful things, but he did those awful things so straight-faced and just so like determined that it's really hard not to want to kind of follow along with his line. So like I can definitely see how he came to be like the commander of the 10 rings, because it's like you command the room when you walk in, and you have this quiet anger about you. It's not like you're raving all the time or you're throwing things, or like he doesn't really get out of line. He's basically just very direct, very, very level. And I think that's a fine line to walk when you're a villain, because it's so easy to be the over the top, extreme, like angry, yelly, like people follow you because they're terrified not to, versus the way that he carried himself as the villain. It was kind of like if he walked up to you in a bar and was like, you know, you guys are having a conversation. I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah. You're talking and you're making sense and I'm going to follow you. Hell yeah. So he's just got like this kind of quiet aura about him that made him scary without being, again, over the top and like, that guy. Yeah. Let me do what he says because he's psycho. It's kind of like, no, I'm going to do what he says because I actually kind of believe what he's saying. So he was my favorite by far.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, for my favorite character from this movie, I'll go be honest, was Katie. I thought Awkwafina, like I don't think I've seen that much of her in. I know we watched Raya the Last Dragon earlier in the year, and you can definitely hear her voice in Raya the Last Dragon. You know it's her. I thought she was brilliant in this, and I know initially, like you touched on this earlier, Jasmine, that she was very much comedy relief early on. But then she changed from comedy relief to actually trying to take more of a pivotal role. And in fact, she saves the day at the end, where she puts the arrow through the dragon's throat and saves the day, basically. So I actually love seeing her journey, as obviously she's like the sidekick. But I'm hoping that we'll see a bigger journey for her, because I love the fact that, we'll talk about the end of the movie, but I love later, but I love the fact that at the end, they also include Katie when they're talking about the journey that these two are going to go on together. Right. So I think this movie isn't just about Shang-Chi, it is about Katie as well and seeing her growth. So I think it was brilliant to see her at the beginning as well, when she gets the keys to the car and she's like, okay, don't worry, Sean, I'll just do it slow. And then flipping hell, she's speeding that, what was it, Ferrari or whatever? Like
Dealer's day off.
Yeah, honestly, it was like, and she's like doing donuts in that thing, you know. She honestly, like, I was like, she's fucking brilliant, like, and then also the scene in the bus where she takes on like the Sandra Bullock role, like doing the sort of, it was very, honestly, that did make me think of Speed, that whole thing, like, and but she again. She was, although she was comedy relief, she was happy to jump into the action, and I actually do love that. And it's something that's not often expected of the secondary role, to sort of go from being sort of damsel in distress to actually trying to help save the day. And in fact, she does save the day at the end of the movie, and she's very much an active and strong part of this role. Part of this movie. So I loved her role. She must have had a lot of fun playing Katie, and I love as well that we get to, although it's a small scene, get to meet her family right at the very beginning. So I think that was quite sweet, that although we don't get to have, she doesn't get shown much in terms of her character's past, we do get a little bit, which is nice. I know the movie again is mainly about Shang-Chi, but we do get to see a little bit of her story as well. So I'm keen to see where she goes beyond this movie. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed her. It's actually made me think I should probably watch more things of her in, because I did think she was really good in this movie. So, right, let's talk about Iron Man 3. I know we've been holding it off. The Iron Man 3 connection. And I had at no point considered whether I should watch Iron Man 3 or any Marvel movie before I jumped into this movie. I knew Wong had a slight appearance in this movie. So I mean, let's talk about that thing before. So Wong has 2 scenes, or actually 3 scenes in this movie. He fights Abomination, and it's kind of really a bit of a throwaway scene. It's done just more to please the long-term Marvel fans. Then we see him again at the end, which we'll talk about the end later, but he's kind of then brought Shang-Chi in. But other than that, except for the Iron Man 3 stuff, it's a good standalone film. Yeah. However, when we meet Shang-Chi's father, and then he talks about he's going around the room, he's talking to all his kids, he's talking to Katie, and then suddenly he brings up that he used to be known as the Mandarin. And I was like, what? I was like, you're just going to drop it on us like this, and you were once known as a Mandarin. And I was like, okay, so you're like the big villain we should have had in Iron Man 3.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, so I thought this is cool that Marvel are undoing that thing that everybody hated. So everybody, I remember, was just so enraged that actually the Mandarin wasn't in Iron Man 3. So Iron Man in the comics, the Mandarin is one of Iron Man's biggest villains. Mm-hmm. Like, and even I've read some stories over the years of Iron Man and Mandarin, and you know, and he has his actual rings on the fingers and stuff like that, doesn't he? Like, so
each one does a different thing.
Hey,
each ring does a different thing, and
yeah. No, I don't know specifically what they do. I'm not the most knowledgeable, like you said, Jelani, on the Mandarin. And
I know nothing of the Mandarin.
Even Iron Man
villain, and that's what we should have got.
But I know that. So when they said, right, I was once known as a Mandarin, I was like, okay, that's cool. Didn't expect that. And then later on, we meet Ben Kingsley, and I thought, so obviously hear them in their little dungeon prison. Shang-Chi, the sister, and Katie are in this little prison, and you hear someone doing some stuff, and then they go around the corner, someone at a desk and stuff like that. I was like, okay, they've got another prisoner. And he turns around, this Ben Kingsley, and then he basically summarizes the entire plot of Iron Man 3. Like, you know, I was a terrorist, got me to be a terrorist, blah, 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 I got arrested, etc. And they're like, oh, so you ended up here, yeah, your father broke me out. Then I saved the day by showing them that I'm an actor, and basically he's their jester now, like, you know, they get him out for performances. So I mean, that's kind of like the connection between that movie. But I just wanted to sort of know what you guys thought about it, and whether you found it jarring or whether you enjoyed it. I mean, Jelani, you've been desperate to talk about this, so go on. Did you find it jarring, or did you enjoy it?
Oh, I enjoyed it because I enjoy Iron Man 3. I even like it, and I'm notorious for not liking kids in film, but I like the kid in Iron Man 3. I have no clue why. But it's just
because he was a smarmy bastard.
Yes, and he was worth it. Worth it. So I mean, it's just you get certain actors to do certain things, and I honestly I had hoped that he would have been with Tony in some aspect of Endgame.
No, just at the funeral.
But it's fine. It's okay. But that movie, I mean, Shane Black, you know, he was in Predator. He wrote The Predator, which is but it's he wrote a great compelling story to Iron Man 3 because it's post-traumatic stress for Iron Man during this period of time, and bringing in the Mandarin would have been perfect to do this. And I understand why people are mad at it, but I kind of like that bait and switch in certain parts. I'm not happy that it was Guy Pearce. That's the problem of that. And I'm like, you are the Mandarin. I'm like, really, bro? And they use Extremis, and Extremis is one of my favorite comic book runs.
I remember reading that.
Extremis was awesome, and they kind of cheapened Extremis in it, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm glad you put Extremis in it. Whatever. But the concept that we could have had Tony Leung there as probably a rival competitor, maybe even funding aid, maybe Guy Pearce is there, but you make him and then you find out that it's this guy and he has these rings and he whoops Iron Man, and it would have been like a post-traumatic thing, you know. It would have been hopeful how he gets away. and then he's like a background villain to Iron Man. I knew they didn't make any more Iron Mans after 3 because of the backlash, I'm pretty sure. But his character, or Tony Leon's character as the Mandarin, and how he could have influenced, or actually we would have had a great villain in the MCU already, because there are only 2 great villains. I'm sorry, there are only 2 great villains arguably in the MCU right now. That's Thanos and Eric Killmonger. That's it. That's everybody. Everybody else is a pale comparison to the other people, except for the end of Black Panther where they're fighting in samey suits. But Eric Killmonger had goals and motivations, and you felt what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Thanos had a familial connection to Gamora that you understood in real time, but you also understood why he was doing what he was doing.
Thanos made a lot of sense. Crazy as his ass was, he made a lot of sense. Yeah,
he sure did. I mean, not on the execution though, because if you kill off half the population and then they start making babies again, I mean, you got that same problem in a couple generations.
I mean, yeah, you'd have the same problem again, but it could take a couple hundred years to get there. But you'd need Thanos again to rock up and wipe half the people out. So, exactly. I mean, the only way you would slowly have Thanos not be a problem is to maybe just have some sort of one child per family. We'll just, but then, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, like we become China.
Sure.
They stopped. By the way, I know they've stopped that. Jasmine, what did you think about the Iron Man 3 connection?
I mean, I really didn't think much of it. Iron Man 3 was not one of my favorites. And I think Iron Man 3 never really jived with me because of what they did with the Mandalorian. I mean, Mandalorian, good God. The Mandarin.
Yeah. Do you know what? No, I agree with you. So Iron Man 3, I was really like excited that the Mandarin was coming into Iron Man 3. Like when they showed all the promos of Ben Kingsley being the Mandarin and like, you know, and he actually looked like the comic book. And then when I remember watching that movie, when they had the whole bait and switch that he was actually an actor to play a role, I honestly couldn't have hated that film more. And I think I've only watched that film once. Like
I've seen it
that one time, and like I've only watched it that one time, and I've never watched it again. And when they just turned the Mandarin, one of probably Marvel Comics' biggest villains, into a joke, I was just like, what? Why? Like, what were you thinking? How did you go from inception to creation? Like, and who greenlit this? Who greenlit this idea? Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Shane Black. It's Shane Black. Shane Black.
Yeah,
he makes these decisions midway through, and he thought it would be funny to do that.
No, but that's the wrong motivation. Like, you're not trying to get a laugh out of people.
They weren't trying. See, the thing is, the Mandarin is a controversial term anyway.
Yes.
Once again, it's chicken dish, but they were trying, and it would have been a great concept to make Ben Kingsley that character. And I would be like, oh my God, just keep doing this, doing this, Ben Kingsley. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the fact it turns on me doesn't hurt it for me because of how it's a Tony Stark growth period, and you get growth in all of these movies. Like I think Captain America is the best of the line of movies that they love. Thor and Iron Man. I think Captain America is the most fleshed out. It makes more sense. It's more cohesive. Iron Man is kind of shaky because I don't acknowledge two. 2 is trash to me.
Iron Man started off really strong, right?
Really
it's the first film of this new Marvel universe, and it set the pace, and it was phenomenal. It was a fantastic film because Marvel managed to take this third-rate character, and you know, again, Tony was an Avenger, but Iron Man, in the grand scheme of comic book characters, nobody gave a shit about Iron Man before 2008. Nobody, okay, except for like the real Marvel heads.
So I did for a while, and then I hated him during Civil War. I actually hated it. The movies brought him back for me.
Yeah. So like you take this character that's third tier, you bring him up into this new spotlight, and you've created a universe around him, and then your 2 follow-up films for that individual character were trash. Yet, whereas like you said with Captain America, it starts out slow. It's a slow burn because we're going back to World War II, we're going back to the Nazis and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, do we really need another war film? But Winter Soldier, and I will fight people, Winter Soldier is probably the best film of all of the MCU films. I'm going to stick with that. As much as I love Black Panther, I think Black Panther is a very close second. But Winter Soldier is the best of all of the MCU films. Civil War is okay, but the progression is still very much there. Whereas with Thor, 1 was bad, and 2 was bad, worse, bad. And then 3 was like, holy shit, this is really refreshing. But it's like 3 doesn't even feel like it's part of the same concept as the first 2. So the individual films are kind of all over the place, but like just bringing it back to Iron Man 3, like that was what bugged me the most, was that A, it's already a controversial character. B, you've got and you brought Ben Kingsley in, and I love Ben Kingsley, and I think he's a phenomenal actor. But like, the stereotypes that they play into for Iron Man 3 really rubbed me the wrong way. So I understand the point of Trevor and why he is as funny and as fun as he is as part of the MCU, but like the Iron Man 3 didn't jive with me at all. So like that connection and all of that stuff, it didn't mean anything to this film to me. So they brought him in as, to me, he's just comic relief in this one and nothing else.
I think so for me, talk about Ben Kingsley, I think they brought him in to kind of like double down on what happened with Iron Man 3 and kind of to justify the decision that they made and kind of maybe
of course
but with the Mandarin, what annoyed me was they had a chance here to make the Mandarin the villain that he should have been, and they kill him off at the end of the film, and they have the whole moment like he should have been the big villain. And in some ways I would have quite liked it if he'd have survived this movie and could have become, I mean, he wasn't, not Thanos or anything like that, but could have been a bit more of a thorn in people's sides, maybe a Loki-esque, not Loki as in funny, but Loki obviously was a villain that they used several movies over, to the point where don't worry, I love Loki, but like, obviously they've had to kind of turn him into slightly hero-esque now.
Yeah, that's why I didn't put him in the villains list.
Yeah. No, he was a strong villain in the beginning, but now he's moved more into hero territory.
But I'm glad that they didn't hold it. Like if that's what their intention was, to like, let's take this Mandarin and make him better. Yet if you're just gonna take that character and just shit on it in the next film that you put him in, I'd rather you kill him off. And I'm glad that we got the strong character that we got in this film, and that's sort of the end of it, before they had a chance to keep retroactively going back and being like, oh, remember this event that happened in this film? Like, oh, that was the Mandarin too. And it's like, no, you messed up that whole Mandarin storyline. At this point, you let it go. We got a character. He was a badass. He was fantastic, the real one. So thank you so much for giving us him. But if all you want to do is use him to kind of rewrite things that have happened before, don't do that. So I'm glad that they killed him off.
I think what they should have done was Iron Man 3 should have had the real Mandarin, even the same actor. Yeah. And then maybe, I doubt they would have just sat on a big villain like him until now. But if they had, that would have been fine too. But I think the reason they didn't use the real Mandarin in Iron Man 3, at that point, they hadn't really gone into magic and fantasy. They'd used more sci-fi and space and technology and things like that. They hadn't really pushed the fantasy barrier. So
I also honestly, just baseline, I don't think Marvel had Shang-Chi planned out that far in advance. No, I think Marvel waited. I mean, it's always there. Like the character is always in the back of their. I think they waited to see what Black Panther did, and when Black Panther did really well, they were like, "Ha! Now is our chance to do this." Like, I just don't think that they would have been banking on it and planning. I mean, I know that they planned really far ahead, but I don't think that Shang-Chi in this form was planned back then.
To be honest, I don't think it was. I don't think most of this was planned to begin with. Like this phase. Mm-hmm. I mean, because of the pandemic, of course, but I think this phase was a little uneven. It's been uneven anyway. We haven't had our blockbuster because we haven't been able to go to a theater. But at the same time, I don't think they had a good vision for what they wanted this phase to be yet.
Yeah.
Because there's there TV shows that have certain threats that maybe or possibly could be inserted and are real connective tissue to what may happen, maybe the Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, because they put so much emphasis on the multiverse, especially Loki and all of these other groups. But it's coming, but the problem is it doesn't feel like it's straightforward. It's kind of passive in what they're doing after Endgame, because Endgame was just, it was just mwah! It was just beautiful. If you're gonna end the cinematic universe, this is how you end it. But the problem is they didn't have like that foundation to continue after Endgame for me. So
I think the entirety of Phase 4 is going to wind up being multiverse, and it's not going to be until Phase 5 where we start to reconcile some of the multiverse craziness that is happening from Phase 4.
We need X-Men, we need Fantastic Four. And I've been saying that for so long, and I know they're probably working on it, but I hope they have a real plan for them.
I think we'll move on from Iron Man in a second, but I think that this film should have been the first film of Phase 4. We said
versus Black Widow. Yeah,
Black Widow should have been released in the order it actually was. Yeah. I don't think, and that would have made that would have made Black Widow's death so much more impactful, because even because I knew that there was a prequel film coming out anyway. I didn't know it was a prequel film, but I knew there's a Black Widow film coming out, and when she died I was like, oh well, there's a film coming out soon, so I didn't care. So I think to have had that prequel film would have actually fleshed out her character more, so when they killed her off in Endgame it would have been like, oh my god, like they actually killed off like a big Avenger, like. So, and then obviously Iron Man dies in the same film, so that I think would have been them really not pulling the punches. So anyway, let's stop talking about Iron Man 3 and let's talk about the structure of the movie, the script, what we thought on the structure, favorite scenes, and anything potentially may have changed or not. I know we've actually kind of touched on a lot of those things already, but anyway, actually I'll let Jasmine go first. What do you think?
I actually liked the writing because it didn't feel too cliched to me. It didn't feel like they took cheap shots at making like quote unquote Asian jokes. So I was actually surprised at how level the scripting was. I felt like I guess I love the fantasy element in the third act. I know you guys had issues with it. So I think that to me, by the time we got up into the third act, I really almost felt like it wasn't even a Marvel film anymore. Like now I feel like I am watching some kind of grand, Chinese cinematic epic. So it completely removed me from the MCU. And by the time we got to the third act with the demons and the dragon and all of the mythical elements all finally kind of coming together, it's different for Marvel, right? Like, the closest that we've had to anything like that was the third Thor film where, we're on basically like Planet Hulk, where it's like everybody's fighting and you've got all of these random creatures or like when you're with Guardians of the Galaxy and the Collector has all of these random creatures. So this film felt more in vein with the space aspect of Marvel as opposed to like the ground level stuff that we're used to. So I like that they're kind of opening up and expanding the fantasy element. And I really just kind of liked, I don't know, it didn't feel too extreme, this film. Like it didn't have that gigantic aha moment. I felt like the entire time that, with all the flashbacks and everything, that Shang-Chi had the dragon's heart in him the whole time. I felt that was like known. So when the dragon finally pops up in the third act, I was like, oh, well, of course, like, yeah, like he's always had it. So to me, it all flowed really well. I loved the character development. I really kind of loved the surprise about their father not being a tyrant, because like that's kind of how they set him up at the beginning of the film. Like he's been conquering, for 1,000 years, but like when it comes to modern times, he's, again, to me, he was very like even keeled. So that was a nice surprise that they didn't go over the top with his desire and with his, you know, lust for saving his wife. So I enjoyed it. I liked the way that it flowed. I thought that it was written well. I love the little details, like at the very beginning when Shang-Chi is going to meet Katie for breakfast before they go to work, and they take the time to show you taking his shoes off before he steps inside. I love that. I love that tiny detail. I love that they talk about, you know, the traditions and about what they leave on the graves and how, you know, they speak so formally to the grandmother. And I loved the detailing that they put into the characters. So it didn't feel like it's surface level. And I think having sort of director with a multicultural background helps as well, because Destin, he's got he was born in Hawaii. He's got a Japanese mom, and his dad is like of Irish and Eastern European descent. So I just think it helps when you let people that have some sort of connection to the material do their own thing. And, you know, that's exactly kind of what helps Black Panther as well. Like a young guy like Brian Coogler coming in and directing this young Black cast. And you know, you got something similar in the vein with Shang-Chi. So I just appreciated the effort that they put in behind the scenes, because otherwise it comes across, again, I brought it up earlier, but it comes across like Mulan if you do it the wrong way, where you kind of want to hit a certain audience, but yet the people that are actually making the decisions are still like the wrong people to be making the decisions. So I think that they did a lot. There's, again, not the same. It's, you know, Marvel versus Disney proper, but a lot of the mistakes that Mulan made, a lot of my issues that I had with Mulan, all of that was corrected with this version of Shang-Chi that we got. So I really enjoyed the full package of what they put together.
What about you, Jelani? What about your views on the structure of this movie?
Okay, and I respect that, Jasmine, very much so. I like it, you know, as a flow. If I had never gone into this movie with an idea of what Shang-Chi was,
mm-hmm.
I have a great respect for, you know, what they decided to go with.
Yeah. And see, I think that's where we're different, right? Like I don't have any of the comic background that you had. So when at the very beginning, when you had said, well, this is not really what Shang-Chi is supposed to be, I was like, oh, I had no idea. Like I literally went in and I was like, damn, I'm enjoying this.
And it's made that way because they're trying to make a new mythology for him because of the background that he currently has. Right, so I get it. I completely get it. And if you're coming into it, you know, blank slate, you don't know anything about it, this is fantastic. And it is. It's I have pacing issues with it though, because he does jump to 11 like 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Right. That bus scene, which is my favorite scene in the movie, by the way. I love that bus scene. I think it happens too quickly. And and more so for me, I would have wanted to see more of San Francisco. Ant-Man lives in San Francisco, but I mean, you don't make a reference to Ant-Man, of course, but have the city in Chinatown and what, you know, what that entails. I would have wanted that integrated into this film. I wanted to see actual Chinese culture in this, and that's why I believe that the third act kind of like falls off, because it's caricatures of Chinese figureheads. Like you get the Chinese lion, you get the Chinese the mystical creature thing aspect, which is fine. I love it. But at the same time, it still feels kind of it just feels off to me. It's kind of off-putting for what the film was setting up to begin with. Like it was a darker, grittier thing, and you go to Macau and you see the cities and things like that, and it's mystical. Yes, there's certain things that are mystical about it, but when they get to that island, for me, it just feels like it's kind of jarring, because you didn't really have that aspect. Like you were creeping it in, you were trying to play with me with it, and of course the rings, you know, help with certain things, but that's not a part of that mythology either.
Yeah.
So it just kind of felt weird that we have. I'm glad they had a different dimension, but it just didn't feel right for me. The acting is great. I like the characters. I like the like I said, the pacing is a little uneven, but I do like that they get to certain they hit the beats that Marvel movies hit. Like you have the character that's kind of fish out of water, but he's happy in his life, and you throw him into this world, but he's already been in this world, but he's reintroduced to it. And I like it. It's been done before, but I like it. And
but it's a formula. It's a formula that works. That's the thing.
That's Marvel.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Marvel machine.
Yeah,
they know what they're doing, and I trust them completely, because I know that in the future all of this builds up to a lot. Because Ant-Man's not my favorite movie. It's quite low because of what they did to Edgar Wright, but the fact that they were willing to go this far and do this and have him possess the rings, and he's now I wanted him to be the master kung fu, to be honest. I wanted to bust out and do Bruce Lee. I wanted it so deep, but I know you can't do that now. So it's fine, and the fights were well choreographed. I think the guy who did the choreography passed away like right after this film was made. As far as I know, don't quote me. I don't know. I think that's kind of what I've heard in the ether. So the fight scenes were well done. I do think the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon fight scene at the beginning is a little cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's still I think it's still cute.
Yeah.
And endearing that he's like, I've come here to take your city. And she's like, I'm not gonna let you.
Yeah.
But then they're fighting, and they're not even fighting. They're like dancing.
Yeah.
It's like a dance, and it's so good. And Michelle Yeoh, when she dances with Simu, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love everything about that portion of the movie. I love those portions, because I'm not a fan of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, because what they did was they put flashbacks within flashbacks in that movie, and you confused the crap out of me. I'm like, no, you can't confuse me in movies. Stop it, Amy. Stop it. So I like how we have flashbacks in this movie, and they're integrated at the right time. Like you don't find out that
they use them to great effect, as opposed to slowing down the pace of the film, which a lot of people make that mistake when they're using flashbacks.
And it's more of a story. It's not just Shang-Chi. It's the story of Wenwu and Shang-Chi, and how I like how it begins with Wenwu, and how he is explained throughout this. And I to introduce him first and not our main character is fantastic. I think it was brilliant. I think it tells that story well of who he was, like Sauron in Lord of the Rings. It explains all of this stuff in chapters before you even get to the main story. So it's okay for me. Like I said, it's still kind of a mixed bag. It's up and down for me, and I still enjoyed the film overall. But like I said, that the Great Protector is nowhere in Marvel canon. If you're going to do something, you do Fin Fang Foom, but even Fin Fang Foom is problematic. But because Fin Fang Foom's race creates the rings, creates the actual rings, so they don't reference it with even the Great Protector. And so I like the Great Protector, but I don't. The big scary monster at the end too is just Soul Eater. He is in canon. Soul Eater exists. So it's just still kind of weird to throw all that in there in this martial arts movie, which I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be purely martial arts. I thought it was purely going to be in San Francisco. I thought that we're going to show the culture and the heritage of Chinatown and a lot of different aspects of that culture. So I learned
that's going to be in the sequel, Jelani. They're going to save something for the sequel.
I want it. I want sandwiches, but I want stuff to eat. Shut up. Take money. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. I go on rants, but that's how I felt about it.
That's all right. Jasmine will just cut you out later. No, I'm joking. She just messaged me going later. I know we were meant to have Jelani on the show, but I just edited him out.
He rambles.
In terms of the movie, I do think it was a little bit too long. But overall, I did enjoy the structure of the movie. I think it was, to be honest, the dialogue it didn't feel flat. It felt alive. Everybody sort of with passion. I actually like that it was generally serious. I'm not sure how I feel overall about Ben Kingsley being brought in. I liked Katie's humor. I'm not too sure. Although I found Ben Kingsley's humor funny and charming, I could have done without it, and I could have done without that role being in there. I kind of felt like when Shang-Chi's father mentions that he was the Mandarin previously, I did feel that was enough. I didn't really feel that we need to bring Trevor in to really double down on the fact that what he did in Iron Man 3. I could have probably, if I'm honest with you, cut Ben Kingsley out of this film. Like, did we need to have a white guy in the movie? Trevor. It was funny. Like, don't get me wrong, I did laugh. I enjoyed his moments, but I actually personally could have cut him out, and it would have been equally as good a movie as it was without Ben Kingsley being in it. I didn't feel that we needed him to be there to tell us again what he did. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's why he was in there, to tell us what he did previously, like to really double down that Mandarin thing. I probably would have taken that out. Overall, like I said, I really enjoyed the movie. I did think, like you, Jelani, I thought more of it was going to be spent in San Francisco. I didn't realize it was going to be sort of as global hopping as it was. I didn't have a problem necessarily with that. I didn't like the end scene in the village. I suddenly was like, oh, where's this come from? Like, we kind of made the whole Mulan joke and stuff. It's kind of felt a bit like it was suddenly, and they've explained it as it was sort of I don't know, another dimension or something, but still, I probably could have done without those dragon scenes. Totally honest with you. I mean, I'll talk about this in a minute. We'll talk about CGI and stuff, but I don't know. I did overall enjoy it. I would definitely watch it again, which I think says a lot. I think the pacing was probably a little bit off though. But overall, I would say the structure, I think, was really well done. In terms of favourite scenes, I loved the whole fighting on the side of the building. I thought that was brilliant. I really loved that whole thing, and and I love the fact that his sister does come back and helps him. So
we don't talk about her enough. She was awesome.
We haven't talked about her.
She was
so I'll quickly segue over into production. So I loved everything about the set designs and the locations. I've never been to San Francisco, and whenever I see it in movies, I'm like, oh, I really want to go to that city. One day I'll go.
It is fabulous, and the best Chinese food I've ever had in this country was in some basement restaurant with no sign in San Francisco.
Well, maybe one day I'll go. I enjoyed the sort of the global hop-in to a degree. Again, not overly keen on the little village at the end, but the CGI, I want to talk about that. So these two dragons, I honestly, at the end, just couldn't tell who was what dragon. I was just watching it, and it was just so quick. Do you know what they could have done was maybe used a bit of bullet time to slow things down, to show us the dragons fighting. So I know bullet time they don't really use that much anymore, but I could have really done with them just really slowing things down, which would have been really cinematic, to be honest, to have slowed down the fighting so we could make it clear what was what. Because with all that water going on everywhere and the two dragons fighting each other, I was just so confused.
That final fight scene with the red and the blue people fighting, you couldn't tell what was going on. You didn't know. And you see them carry the souls away, and you do see a lot of people's souls being taken. But at the same time, I would have liked to see more of that while they were fighting. Like they're fighting. I don't know how to explain it. It just looked like a hodgepodge. It's just like so much is going on the screen. They're fighting each other. They're fighting these things. So I get what you're saying, but it's a CGI. It's a CGI crapshoot for this one for me. But go ahead.
No, that's fine. I mean, have you two got any views on it at all, on just the sort of the CGI and the set design, that kind of stuff?
No, not really. I mean, it's still great for the most part. Like the bus sequence and the bus being cut in half, that was fantastic. The fighting on the side of the building in Macau, that was really great. Even just with regular stuff like Wong using his portals and them bringing Abomination back, like Abomination looked a little different. I mean, I think they kind of upgraded the design a little bit, but still, like, it's very reminiscent, like makes you remember that even though you guys have not put a Hulk film into the MCU officially, like, it's nice that you are bringing Hulk characters in. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any complaints one way or the other. Nothing felt too out of place to me.
Yeah. Let's talk about the end of the movie. So the movie ends with father dying and everybody having a bit of a, again, holding hands and running off into the sunlight and sunset, sorry. But what I loved actually was that we kind of went full circle, that Shang-Chi and Katie are sitting there with their two best mates.
Yes.
And like even they say, look, a week ago you guys were like parking cars, like and then I love that Wong opens the doorway, walks in, and is like, Shang-Chi, like, and then they walk off. But I love the kind of fact that we do get this like happy ending, and I watched this with a friend who hadn't been to the cinema for years, and I was like, we've got to wait, like there's going to be mid-credit sequences. So like there's two.
We got a mid and a post.
Mid and a post, and actually they were both relevant to the film. So so the first one is that the sister is now in charge of the Ten Rings criminal empire, and she looks pretty happy about it. So I thought I'm intrigued to see more of that. And then we sent at the end, we've obviously got Shang-Chi and Katie with Wong and Captain Marvel, and and Hulk as well. And then they reference a beacon hidden within the rings. And who is this beacon signaling? Who is out there? Who are we calling? So
I mean, who else other than Galactus? The Eternals trailer that they finally released right before the film started, the one that's attached to the actual film, finally showed Galactus in that Eternals trailer, and I was like, "Oh,
Galactus! That's not Galactus.
Oh,
no, that's not Galactus. No, that's not Galactus
at all.
My bad.
See, we deal with
that's the
Fantastic Four. It's a Fantastic Four property, and we, of course, 20th Century Fox obtained the rights to Fantastic Four, but they haven't done anything with that yet. They have not teased Galactus at all. They've only shown.
Who was that then in the Eternals?
Oh, that was the Celestial. Celestial. How do you say it? Yeah, Celestial. Yeah.
They're a Jack Kirby creation. Jack Kirby created the Celestials. I know absolutely nothing past this other than they're uber.
They're like gods. They're basically like gods,
cosmic gods. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that created the Eternals to bring them to Earth to fight the Deviants. That's what they did in the Jack Kirby comic book canon. So they show They don't show Galactus. They show one of the Celestials.
Okay, I learned something today. Then
no, it's all good. That's what I'm saying. You're a Marvel normie. I feel you.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Well, yeah, when that trailer came out, everyone went mental going, "Oh, it's Galactus in the trailer."
Galactus?
No, it's like not Galactus. It's
Galactus looks
Celestial. But then the Celestials aren't really well known to most people, like Jasmine.
Right.
Like she said,
yeah. I mean, I know what the Watchers look like, but that's because of What If.
Right. You only get technically. There's Uatu. Uatu is the only Watcher. He's the Watcher that is in Galactus for Fantastic Four. He is the one that talks to he interferes for the first time when he talks to Galactus, because he's never interfered. He only watches. And that's where he comes from. From that original story of Galactus, which I really hope we get. I really hope we get a good Fantastic Four movie finally, where it actually tells the story of Galactus, and he's not a big giant smoke cloud.
They won't do
whatever that nonsense was.
Well, I generally believe Marvel won't. I don't think Marvel will mess up Galactus.
No, they won't mess him up. But they're introducing Celestials. So if they're introducing Celestials, we're getting Galactus. So it's coming. It's just a weird turn for us to have that big of a cosmic being this far in. I mean, we needed the Eternals probably a little bit before this, but I'm glad they are where they are right now. I'm glad they're starting it right there. So people will understand deeper Marvel lore, because there's deeper stuff. They're like E, F, and C list hero, or E, F, and G. I'm sorry, heroes that we don't know about that they're slowly bringing in here. because Iron Man was so successful because of his C-list status. And they brought him in and it was successful. They brought in Guardians of the Galaxy, which I never read until it turned out to be one of my favorite Marvel films. But I like how they're bringing these properties slowly into this. So it makes people want to know more about these characters. So I love it. It's making people nerds all over the world. I love it. Absolutely adore it. So keep doing it. Sorry, keep going.
Well, that's brilliant. As we'll sort of wrap up our review of Shang-Chi, and we end it as we always do with a rating. It's very similar to what you guys do on PCP. We rate it out of 5. So, Jelani, what would you give this out of 5? This movie?
This one, Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. I'm giving it 3.5. I give it 3.5. It's a solid movie. It's a mixed bag for me. That third act, I don't know. I wanted him to fight the Mandarin in some awesome epic battle on top of a building again. I wanted to see that, but we got flying space things. So it's okay. It's a mixed bag, but I will definitely watch it again. I watched it twice already, so I'm definitely watching it again. And I can't wait to see what they do going forward with his character, with Awkwafina's character now, with Katie. I want to see all this happen again. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited for it. So 3.5 for me.
Brilliant. 3.5 from you. And Jasmine, what about from you?
I'm going higher. I'm going 4.5. Coming in as just looking at film. With obviously no background knowledge of this character at all. I really enjoyed this movie as almost a standalone movie. Like, they made a couple of references that you'd have to know. Like, if you had never watched Iron Man 3, then you don't get the Trevor reveal at all, obviously. But I enjoyed this film, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with the follow-up film. But I am really all in for Xialing being the new head of the Ten Rings. So, because we didn't talk about it enough during this review, but she is such a badass. And like, now that the compound is all graffitied and very like pop cultured and like underground, like subculture, like, hell yeah. Like, she's got women in there fighting with they get the same kind of training that the men get. I am very eager to see what kind of Ten Rings she's going to bring up into the next film. So 4.5 for me.
Yeah, I actually, when I was thinking about the grade, I was going in 4.5 as well. So I think, like, I did have some problems with the end bit, but generally I think this is a good, solid movie. Like I say, the only bit I would have cut out would have been Trevor. I would have been happy with Shang-Chi's father just saying I was once called the Mandarin, and that would have been it. I actually was just happy with that. I didn't feel we needed any more Trevor, or any references. So actually cut that out, and probably would have given me a 5, but I'll go with 4.5. And like you, Jasmine, I'm actually excited to see where we go with the Ten Rings Criminal Empire. I love the fact that already Katie and Shang-Chi have been introduced to Wong, and they're already, and like, I love the fact that Hulk's like, yeah, welcome to the club. So I think it was generally a good standalone film, but then I love at the end they kind of just spice it into the Marvel universe. So they didn't really put, like you said, Jelani, Ant-Man's in San Francisco. I'm glad that they didn't do that as well. Like, to maybe have the bus fly past Ant-Man on the street or something like that. That actually could have been a good Stan Lee cameo, actually. Like just to have him walking out the shop, like, I don't know, buying a newspaper, and he just sees a thing. But obviously, it's so quick. It's so quick, and
it's what's missing. It's what's missing.
I mean, if it had been like that, like if it had just gone past Paul Rudd, is like, I don't know, sitting down having a coffee, and the bus flies past, and you just see him, like, that probably I would have been okay with, but I wouldn't have wanted him to get involved. Like,
no. Like, I didn't want him involved. I would want to, if you're in San Francisco, have a brief reference to an Ant-Man. That's it. You don't even have to have Paul Rudd in it. just something to throw.
Or you could have had like in America, you guys have those like newspaper things on the street, don't you, where you put like a quarter in and get a newspaper out. You could have had like a newspaper glass window thing which showed Ant-Man saved restaurant from burning 2 days ago, or it just like as the bus goes past. That might have been a cool reference, like a bit like how we're not got Stan Lee in anymore. You could have had
we need something. That's what it is in these movies.
Yeah. And they need you can't have a new Stan Lee, but they could have do something.
Well, they're trying to make Deadpool. They're trying to make Ryan Reynolds it, but see, they haven't introduced him yet.
But see, they could do something fun where they just have a different character in every film, like just some different random character.
Or like a bit like a Where's Wally, like you suddenly spot like or you guys call it Waldo, don't you? But like so like have something like that in the background might be quite cool. But or I don't know. Anyway, let's finish there. Cheers, Jelani, for joining us on Geeks and Niche for this review.
Thank you, guys.
So next episode, we will be reviewing the whole of season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen.
I am so excited that I finally got Mark to watch some anime. You guys have no idea.
And by the way, I volunteered. I suggested it. I said let's watch it. So
it's a great show.
It is fantastic. And don't forget,
don't give any views now. Let's save it for the episode. Anyway.
It's too late. And don't forget, we did start a second podcast series where we tackle some of the most essential graphic novels of all time. Our 9th Late to the Party Book Club episode was Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi. That episode dropped mid-August. And our next book club, we're going to be reviewing the first 2 volumes of Why the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra.
You can also follow us as Geeks Unleashed everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Come say hello, come DM, come do whatever. Jelani, are you anywhere on social media, or is it just the PCP? Or
oh yeah, I don't do Twitter or Instagram or anything because I like my job. So you can find me on Facebook. I'm Jelani Ali Bullard. I have another Facebook page. Of course, check out our PCP Army. On Facebook, we have a Facebook group. We also have Cultural Pop, the place to talk nerd. Is another group that I'm in, or that I admin. So we just talk nerd stuff, drop memes, talk shit online. That's what we do. So it's all I do because once again, I like my job, so I can't get canceled out on these streets. I'm too pretty. But thanks for having me so much, guys. I really appreciate it. This was a great and lively discussion.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And one more thing, guys, you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts: Google, Podbean, Apple, Spotify. We are everywhere. So please give us a 5-star review and tell your geeky friends.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers for listening.
Good journey.
Oh, I didn't do it because I thought you got the feel of it. But yes, good journey. Good journey.